Well, hello, everybody. It is the Dennis and Andy Show. It is hump day. It is the moment you wait for every week, 3:30 p.m. Eastern time. You guys are like counting down the minutes, the seconds to the moment when it's the two of us, your favorite movie critics, your favorite entertainers on the internet.
New Comic Wednesday. Yes, I stopped over, picked up all my new books for the week before I came over to Andy's and got this show ready to go. My quick flips I'll be putting them out over the next couple of days for you guys to go through and watch.
It was a sad week for me at the funny bookstore. I go every Wednesday as well. And the only book I picked up was Action Comics 775, which was a facsimile edition of this book that still came out within, I believe, the past 20. I'm pretty sure it came out maybe late 90s. So it's not that old. I still don't know why they did a facsimile edition of it. Maybe because of the Superman movie. But I picked it up, even though I already own it, because I love Doug Mahnke's artwork and Doug drew it. The other thing that I thought about picking up, but I already own it, and I don't even know if you knew it came out. They did a facsimile edition of Superman versus Shazam, the Treasury size.
Yeah, I saw that last week.
Really?
Yep.
Oh, I thought it came out this week. Well, anyhow, I saw it this week. I own it, and even though it's cool, I don't really need to drop another $15 to have two copies of that book. So I'll just stick with my original copy when I want to look at it. So there you go. So it was a very light week for me. Randy Howell, of course, is in the house. Hello, Randy. Leg kick. What is up? Headless bourgeoisie. Hello. I actually said that right. JP Roca, Marcus Killigrew, Dennis Rodriguez. Great to see everybody here. We have a great guest today. I always hate saying, so our guest is the creator of the Elementals. And I hate saying that. It's like, I read this as a kid, because then I always feel like my guest is going to be like, damn, that just makes me feel old. And it wouldn't be bad if I was like 20 and saying it, but considering I'm double nickels 55 and I'm saying I read this as a kid, hopefully Bill will not leave and be like, you bastard, now I really do feel old. But without further ado, and I still have my original copies. I like the trade because I can pull it off my shelf. The originals are back there, bagged and boarded. So, hello, Mr. Willingham. How are you?
I'm fine. I feel old.
Damn it! I knew that was going to happen.
Don't worry about it. Getting out of bed makes me feel old. So you're okay.
Hey, so I get up at like, I have ungodly hours now because my daughter works an overnight thing and she doesn't drive. But hey, man, like you heard me say, I'm 55. When I get out of bed, it's not just a spring out of bed. It's literally I get up and I'm kind of doing this. Oh, yeah. I'm just like,
bones are cracking.
When
things
did
are
that
snapping.
happen? So,
yeah, when you have to do that before you actually get out of bed, then you're old.
Well, that hasn't happened yet. Thank God.
Knock on wood.
Yeah. Knock on wood. But before we start, what we usually do is our standard interview and stuff with you. We were talking before we went live about different foods we've eaten. And you brought up how in Wisconsin, it's legal to own a kangaroo. And then Dennis said he's actually tried kangaroo before when he was in Switzerland?
Switzerland, yes. Yeah. Water buffalo and kangaroo when I was in Switzerland.
And then right before you go live, you're like, you mentioned how at some point you probably unfortunately did have horse because of this restaurant in Seattle. But then we mentioned dogs. I brought up dogs and cats. And I'm like, well, I know over in Asia that's a thing, but I don't think I could ever eat a dog or cat. And you were like, I probably have. And that's where we left off. and I'm like, God, I hope that wasn't in the States somewhere. But
Well,
you tell us.
yeah, you might have. I mean, it's a scandal from time to time when certain restaurants are found to be using unauthorized meats. The the trick though is any restaurant can serve you those things: dog, cat, horse, rat, as long as they announce that they're serving you dog, cat, horse,
right.
and rat. There was a I'm going to misremember where I've moved all over, so I've lived all over. Some restaurant I lived at somewhere that made a special deal out of the fact that they had rat on their menu.
Really?
I don't know if it really tore it up with the customers, but they did offer it. I didn't choose rat myself.
See, I was under the impression, and I guess I just heard this somewhere, or maybe I didn't, and I'm making it up, but I thought there was a law in the States that you couldn't, even if you announced it, you're not allowed to serve like dog or cat.
State laws may differ.
Okay.
But no, to my knowledge, most states, all you have to do is admit that is what you are.
Wow. Headless says unauthorized meats, quote unquote, is a great name for an anthology comic.
There you go.
Yeah, that's it. That's good.
That is funny. No, we were when you brought that up, I was like, well, we got to save this for the show now, because on the way up to Oshkosh, there was a place, I think it was called Oriental Palace. When we grew up there, and it was, right out on a highway, and we would go up there to eat. We would trek up from Fondy and stuff like that. And then there's always been rumors because of all missing dogs and cats and pets were going. So there were always wild rumors that went out there, but that's what you thought it was, just local legend, whatever, myth.
Lore.
And then all of a sudden the health department came in and they shut them down because they found dogs, cats, whatnot in the freezer. And we would consider that unauthorized meat stand. It was closed forever. As far as I know, it stayed closed. It never reopened, even under a different name. So, you never know if you've had it then. And as many times as we ate there, willing to bet we did.
I suspect so. I suspect you have too, Andy. Sorry to give you the.
Yeah, no, you're well. The thing is, like, some people have a palate where they can really distinguish. Like this guy, you blindfold him and just give him different types of cheeses because he's from Wisconsin, and he can be like, oh, it's this type. Oh, it's this type. Oh, it's this type. Now, yeah, I can tell the difference from like American cheese and like pepper jack because those are pretty out there. But I've had bison, and obviously I've had just regular cow, steak and hamburger and turkey burger and stuff. Honestly, I guess it's not, I really don't tell that much of a difference. Like I've had gator when I lived in Florida, and I was like, yeah, I don't hate it, but I also can't say like, oh, this is so different from cow, So you're probably right. I probably have had it, but I couldn't tell you anyhow. So it's like Coke and Pepsi. You put those in front of me, I'd be like, yeah, I don't know which one's which. They taste the same.
Huh.
Very different.
Okay then.
Coke. Back in when I was in high school, we had the Pepsi challenge. It was Coke, RC, and Pepsi, and the same thing. It was blindfolders. They were blind tests, and they brought it into school, and we all got to do it. I got it right all 32 times.
Right? You went through the challenge 32 times?
Yep, because they were like, it was a fluke, do it again. There were a couple of us in class that could do it, but yeah, I took the challenge 32 times, and I got Coke, Pepsi, and RC right every single time.
Were you thirsty that day?
Oh, I had no problem drinking that stuff back then.
Okay, all right.
Back then, we go to a movie once a week, and he's so giddy because at the movie theater, so any place he can get it is Mr. Pibb.
Pibb Zero.
Oh, God.
Oh, yeah. The only place I can get it, they stopped putting it out in cans and bottles. So our AMC theater has Pib Zero. So I get the extra large Pib Zero every week at the movie. It's the one time that I absolutely have to drink soda now during the week. It's my guilty pleasure.
Huh.
Yeah.
You can say it. It's gross. He won't care.
Yeah. So,
Okay.
Bill, one of the things
So
we
this has
always
been
like to
Dennis
ask.
and Andy talk fast foods, brought to you by Taco Bell. And thank you. I had a wonderful time, and I'll
No.
see you guys later.
We're getting to the
I mean,
Bill
that's the
Willingham
show, right?
portion of the show right
Yep.
now.
Yep.
Oh, okay. All
So
right.
one of the first things we always asked our new guests and stuff is something attracted you into comics when you were little. You were either given a comic or you bought one for the first time. Do you remember your first comic that you ever read, and do you maybe still have it?
The answer is I don't still have it. I might remember the first comic I read. You got to understand, I started reading comics before I started reading, as many do.
Yeah, I was going to say that sounds right. Yeah.
My dad was stationed in Germany. I was young. I was 4 years old, probably. We had comics about it was ubiquitous throughout the enlisted quarters just off post. They were always around. I'm not sure where they came from. We had no TV then. This was back in 59 to 62. So my brother and I looked at funny books. We didn't get to read them in the sense that I couldn't quite read yet. But we were blessed with a battalion of older sisters who were as equally bored as us. And so to grab a comic and corral one into saying, read this to me, was fairly easy.
Yeah.
The one I remember specifically was a copy of Secret Six, DC Comics, bringing it to my sister Barbara and saying, read this to me. And it was like underwater guys and adventure. It appealed to me. So we'll call that the first one I read, but I can't swear to that. I do remember the first one I bought with my own money.
Oh, okay.
When my father retired and we moved to the States, just outside of Seattle, in 1962. And for the first time, I found out that comics didn't just show up. You had to go get them. I bought a copy of Spider-Man, I want to say number 12. It was the one with Spider-Man and the Scorpion on the cover in the water. And I think the title was Never Step on a Scorpion. But it was Spider-Man, Steve Ditko, number 12, I think, was the first I spent my own money on.
So like after buying that one and reading it, were you like hooked where it was like, I got to, explore more and try to keep getting these on a regular basis and, going back to wherever.
Yeah. For 3 years in Germany, comics were the only entertainment material we had outside of the Post Theater, which would show a kids movie and kids serial every Saturday.
Yeah.
That was it. So in my who am I going to be in this life formative years, comics were important, and I'm sure that's what sort of lit that spark.
So were you, like I always like to say, kids, people ask, oh, did you draw as a kid? They always ask that. You've probably been asked and stuff. And the follow-up is always, and how did you know that's what you want to do? And I always use my daughter kind of as an example, and she's 22 now, but I say, I always drew as a kid, but I think most kids do. And I say, my daughter, when she was 3 years old, she had a little Playmobil, whatever it was, type desk next to mine. And I say the difference is, though, once she got older and could do other things, she basically stopped drawing to do other things. Whereas myself, and I assume you, were like, no, I just pencil and paper. That's all I need. I never want to stop. Is that kind of how it was, or?
Pretty much. I can't really recall when I began drawing, but I can recall certain formative moments in Newport Hills, which is a suburb of Seattle in Bellevue, Washington. One day I was always drawing, and one of the neighbor kids, Bruce Gibbon, also loved drawing. One day he comes over to my house and said, let's you and me start a comic company. Since it's Bruce and Bill, or Bill and Bruce, we just call it B&B. We never have to decide who goes first.
Sure.
And we did that. We drew our own comics, hand drawn.
Yeah.
We did them on a piece of typing paper folded over. And then when we were done with a issue of something, my sister Barbara, already spoken of, going to high school at the time, worked in the local principal office, whatever they call the office complex, and had access to mimeograph machines, and would produce copies of these.
Oh, nice.
Which we would, at first we were going to sell them to the other kids in the neighborhood, but then it's like you hand draw something and maybe you get 2 or 3 copies of it. Selling them removes a big chunk of work. So we opened a lending library for 5 cents a pop.
Nice.
You could borrow one of our comics, read it, return it. Bruce came up with Chameleon Man, who was just like Spider-Man, except that he could change the colors of his costume. I came up with Mantis Man, who was just like Spider-Man, except he killed and ate his mates every once in a while. Now I have no idea why I called him Mantis Man. I put a great big fin on his head because in the real comics world, Submariner's faux tiger shark had just debuted for the first time, and I said that's as good as comics get right there. So
yeah, Dennis, hold on. I love Tiger Shark.
Man with a fin. What?
I love Tiger Shark. He is one of my all-time favorites. John Buscema is one of my all-time favorite artists, and those Namor issues, like 5 and 6, I think it was,
they were just,
oh my God, they were gorgeous. But he always makes fun of me because of Tiger Shark. So
we've got a friend of ours who keeps trying to get me to buy all the Tiger Shark issues from him, and I'm like, nope, not my cup of tea.
Really?
Nope.
What the hell's wrong with you?
That's exactly. No, I can't remember.
It was a great costume design.
It is. And there's this, I'm looking at a recreation. So there's splash page, I think it's issue 6, where it's, I can read, can you read what that full text says? And something death, to the right, top right, see Tiger Shark? Can you read that?
Yeah, and to the vanquished.
And to the vanquished death is the title on the splash page, and Tiger Shark's kind of bent over full figure holding the arm of some Atlantean chick. Yeah. And, it's John Buscema. This was years ago. Joe Jusko on his Facebook page was showing a recreation of a John Buscema page he had done by this artist that lives over, I think he's in France. And the guy does the lettering and everything. Mm-hmm. And you'd swear it was the original page. That's how good the line for line was this guy was doing. So I got the guy's contact info from Joe, and I emailed him. Like I said, this had to be a decade or more ago. And I said, what do you charge? And he's like, oh, for the full page, 11 by 17, lettering and all, $175. And you might think it's weird because it's like, well, I'm an artist. I could probably just throw it on a light box myself and do it. But even lettering, my hand lettering just sucks. So I was like, I'll pay the guy. So I paid the guy. I got it. Like I said, it's hanging up on my wall. People look at it and they're like, how'd you get that original page? And I'm like, it's not. It's a recreation. That's how good this guy is. So, but I'm right there with you. So going with artists, when you were early in the comics and stuff and drawing, what artists like really kind of like spoke to you or that you really followed and stuff?
Well, I guess I followed certain artists before I realized that different artists were drawing it. I mean, I was young.
Sure.
I began to realize that different artists drew these things when I began to understand that, sometimes Iron Man looks better now than when he did before, things like that. But that,
Sure.
And then I started paying attention to credits that DC was still not doing credits in their books, but Marvel was. And more than anything else, because I wanted to know who was drawing what, who was writing what, I think that made me a Marvel kid rather than a DC kid.
Sure.
Marvel and DC, if you could go back in time, when you were choosing up sides, that was one of the biggest factors, and you DC were late to get on that bandwagon.
Mm-hmm.
Even then, though, neither company would admit that it was the creators rather than the characters that drove sales, and for the most part, it was probably true, but not entirely. When I began to become artist aware, it was Steve Ditko. It was eventually John Romita Sr. because I was a Spider-Man fan and I wasn't going to drop the book just because Steve Ditko left.
Sure.
And Jack Kirby. Anything Jack Kirby did,
Mm.
I was there. So I became a fan of Fantastic Four, and since he could show up as anything on anything because he was the one they called when we need someone right now because we're about to ship this book late. So yeah, anything Jack drew, I was there for it. I was a fan of his work. I didn't want to draw like Jack Kirby though. I mean, his stuff was mythological. You didn't want to emulate him. As a matter of fact, the few that I've seen professionally that tried, it's lifeless to me. Because you don't go to an Olympian god and say, I'm pretty much going to be just like you. You can't attain that.
Right.
The first artist I remember trying to draw like it, like just trying to imitate his work, was when Steranko was doing Captain America briefly and Agent of S.H.I.E.L.D.
Yeah.
That stuff just blew me away. And yeah, I tried it. Bruce Given, the other guy in B&B Comics, came over at one point, and I was trying to draw like Steranko and trying to come up with my own secret agent character. And he said, yeah, we should do goofy, fun stuff. We shouldn't try and do serious stuff like this, and rejected it. Later on, in the last gasp of my trying to hand draw my own comics and sell them to friends and sisters and such, it was Neil Adams. But then everyone went through. John Byrne went through his "I want to be Neil Adams when I grow up." Everyone did, and everyone does, and yeah.
That was one of the one of the things that. So I first discovered your work through Elementals, and then I realized, hey, this stuff kind of looks like some of those D&D ads I've seen. And I put those pieces together. But one of the things I liked about Elementals, because, it's comic books and you're a kid, you go, I go to the store, and if it's visual, you pick it up and look at it. Then you hope the story's good to keep, coming back. But generally with comics, you buy it because it's, it's a visual for a new book. I bought it, I read it, I liked it, so I kept buying it. But the thing I liked about your work was I couldn't really pinpoint like, oh, this guy likes this guy art-wise. You know what I mean? Like you were saying with, Barry Windsor Smith started out and you were like, oh, he likes Jack Kirby.
Yes.
And with your work, I couldn't really do that. And I think that's one of the reasons I liked it out of the gate as well, visually, is because, at least at that young age, I wasn't. This is where I forget. What year did Elementals first come out? Do you recall?
83, 84?
I want to say I started it in 82, so publication-wise, it probably began in 83.
All right, so I was like 13. So at that age, I could tell like, oh, this guy, is influenced by this artist, so on and so forth. But I never got that when I was looking at Elementals, and that's one thing I thought was cool. I don't know if you look at it, or even at the time, if you remember when you were drawing it, you were like, oh, I really like what this guy's doing. I'm going to try and incorporate some of that into it or not. But
yeah, I suspected, without being able to see it myself, that I wore my influences on my sleeve. I know at some point other people who were also at the same stage as I in the business would point out, oh, you were loving Michael Golden then. Oh, you got this from there. But I couldn't see it. I was blind to my own style of work for a long time, even to the extent that may have been Matt Wagner at some point saying, look at this, you've made it because you've got a Bill Willingham imitator out there trying to draw like you. And I couldn't see it. I could see the strengths and defects in his work, but I couldn't see the resemblance to my own work. I think I can now, but I'm not sure. I'm saved from that for the most part. That there are, I think, damn few people that, with all these stellar talents out there, that want to grow up and draw like me.
Right. So getting back to like your path to getting published and stuff, did you, after high school, did you go to like an art school? Did you go to college? Like, how did you get in? What was your first published work and stuff?
I went to college for a couple of years. As close as I came to art school was the life drawing courses that just about every college offered some version of.
Yeah.
I enjoyed those. I specifically enjoyed the dates I got from that because one of the advantages in a life drawing class where they let anyone in is if you're the better artist in that group, the naked women will come hang out with you during their breaks.
That's right.
And I ended up briefly dating a couple of the models. So I enjoyed that. I don't know that it did anything for my art other than eventually realizing that people don't much look like they do in the funny books. But that was the extent of my formal training, if you want to call it that.
Oh, wow.
Then I went into the Army, and then I got out of the Army and went to work for TSR Hobbies in 80, the summer of 80. And that was when, I guess admitted to myself, I guess I'm going to pursue art as a career, and started to take it seriously.
That's cool. Now this guy, huge D&D fan. So
yeah, I was playing from the original box set. So, as soon as you said TSR, my ears kind of perked up. So old Dungeons and Dragons, Star Frontiers, that kind of stuff.
Yep. Yeah. Well, I was there in the early days of some of that.
Were
That's
you
great
doing
stuff?
were you doing full color stuff or just black and white stuff for those guys?
Well, I was doing some full color, not expertly. When I came to TSR out of the Army, the letter offering me the job, I thought I had a job waiting for me. It turns out that when I arrived there ready to get to work, it was between me and one other fellow. Then I reread the job offer letter, and it was carefully worded so as not to guarantee that I had a job waiting. So it was between me and one other fellow, because thinking I had the job, I packed up all my artwork and all the stuff that the Army sends home for you, but it will sometimes take 3 to 6 months to catch up to you.
Oh wow.
So I didn't have a portfolio on hand to compete with this guy. I used to remember his name and try and follow his career, but it was between me and him, and I had no work, and so Dave Sutherland, the art director at the time, gave me a bunch of paper, some tools, said, I don't have to decide for a week. Go back to your hotel room. I was staying in a motel at the time, and come back with samples.
Mm-hmm.
Even gave me a list, drawn or other, whatever.
Oh, okay. Yeah, cool.
So I went and worked myself silly for a week, came back, showed him the samples. The other guy was there. And apparently before we showed up, he showed our samples to the rest of the art department, who went through them and criticized and said he's better than this guy or whatever. So that when I showed up, he brought both of us in the room together, and almost like a game show in front of all the other artists. And he kind of said, okay, there's one job available, and the winner is you, which was me.
Yeah.
The other guy almost cried.
No.
It was, well, I hardly blame it. It was a terrible thing to do to do it as a public thing like that.
Yeah.
But then he asked, can I see his work? And then Dave Sutherland just took all of my work that I just slaved over for a week and handed it to him. And he went through it like this, and he just like, and then stormed out.
Oh,
wow.
Actual storm out, which is why I and the other members of the art department sort of kept tabs on him from one time, because they were all fairly certain that he was going to show up and gun me down someday.
oh
Wow.
God.
Spoiler alert, he didn't.
He did.
Never saw him again. But
I was going to ask if it was Mark A. Nelson, but no, that wouldn't have been him. He would have done that.
I used to know his name. I kind of let that stuff go. Yeah, what was the question?
No, it was just about the TSR stuff, but
Joe's asking, says, Bill, what TSR piece is your most famous? Do you have one that stuck out where you're on the front of something? Or
well, the most famous was a painting I did for one of the modules. I think, don't hold me to this, The Secret of Bone Hill, but it had a female sorceress type in a red skin-tight costume, zapping some opponent sorcerer to the point where you're seeing his skeleton and all this. And it's in glorious color. I was having trouble getting my
that's it.
The interior drawing for products at TSR, only the art director had to approve. For cover work, Gary Gygax had to approve, and he kept rejecting my covers until Errol Otis took me aside one day and said, "Look, Gary likes red. Put more red in your paintings, and you'll get your paintings approved." And I tested it by putting this young lady entirely in red, and he approved it. He approved it like that. So perhaps it's true that Gary liked red. That's probably the one that gets shown most often, as I remember him fondly. Kind of.
Now,
stuff.
were you a self-taught painter? I guess then you taught yourself how to paint and color, or
Oh yeah. Oh, that's what I was gonna say and answer your previous question. Is I lied. Yes, that's it. Secret of Bone Hill. So I remembered it. I lied to get the job because in addition to proving we could draw, he asked lots of questions. He asked me, do I do key lining? I go, yes, I do. Do I do 4-color work? I go, yes, I do. Had no idea what 4-color work was.
Now, see, I don't know what key lining is, but I know what full color. So.
Yeah, well, 4-color is full color.
Right.
I did not know before then how color separations work until one day. I was the first week at TSR. I was the best employee in the art department because I would always stay late. And the reason I would stay late is that when everyone went home, Dave Sutherland would lock his little office that was appended to the whole art department. And it was an easy lock to pick. And I would break into his office every night and try and figure out all this stuff that I claimed I knew how to do. And eventually I saw all these covers pinned to his cork wall, and I pulled them down and pulled the sheets apart and go, oh, look at that. There's 4 different color sheets that end up being a full color work. So what he was asking me was, can you work in color? And I go, yeah, I can do that. I lied my way into the job. I learned that early. If your job interview depends on, can you do this? Can you do this? Everyone who's ever been in a cowboy movie has a funny story about how they say, do you know how to ride a horse? And they said, yes, I do. And then they went right out and got horse riding lessons because, of course, they didn't. I learned from that. So I said, yes, I do. And then I worked hard to figure out what he was actually asking me. I'm not entirely sure what key lining is either, Dennis, but I think I figured it out temporarily. Anything I learned that I don't need, I discard. I got in all moving around when my dad was in the Army, and then when I got very good at picking up languages quickly. But unfortunately, as soon as I stop using them, I lose them just as quickly.
Sure. No, I'm the same way. I mean, I went to the Joe Kubert school, and I think Joe was I think Joe was even like, and I was lucky enough to have him for 2 out of the 3 years. And not only Joe, but other teachers, I think, pretty much said, look, if they ask if you know how to do something, just say yes and then go figure it out.
Right. Was Mike Chen there when you went there?
Oh yeah, Mike. Oh yeah. Mike was great. I had Mike as a teacher. Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Still talk to him every now and then. Yeah. I didn't know until now that TSR wasn't a freelance thing. I didn't know it was an office you actually went into and stuff. I assumed it was just freelance through the mail.
They had the art department. There was Dave Sutherland, Jim Rosloff, Errol Otis, Dave LaForce, Jeff D, and me. We were full-time, but they also used
they did
freelancers as well.
Oh, okay. So how long were you there for on staff?
1 year.
Just a year. And then you went freelance, so you still did stuff for them?
I showed up to my job at TSR with 1 foot already out the door. I sort of made it clear that I'm here long enough until it takes me to break into comics.
Okay.
And use the year to do that.
Right.
As a matter of fact, when that year was coming to a close, and they began to realize that I was getting close to getting comics work. I'd already taken a couple of flights out there on my dime to talk to the people.
Yeah.
Dave Sutherland and I want to say Doug Bloom, one of the Bloom people, took me out to the Playboy Club to wine and dine me and try and keep me to stay.
No way.
And they almost closed the deal. My hourly salary was bumped many times during that lunch to try and persuade me. And they even sort of hinted that, look, if you want to be assistant art director, you know, Jim Rosloff doesn't need to have that title. And I'm going, what the hell? Jim is,
He doesn't need
a
to have that
wonderful,
title.
decent guy. You don't do that to him. But what they couldn't get beyond is that they said, look, if you change the rules so that we keep our art originals, you got me. And every time I said that, they said, we can't do that because Gary and the Blooms, the other Blooms, won't let us. They want to keep everything. So they kept bumping my salary. And I go, look, I will take the extra money. I love the extra money. You certainly don't pay us enough. And now that I find that you have the option of paying us more, that even hurts more.
Sure.
But money isn't the problem. It's you're stealing my art.
Right.
Yes, you're buying publication rights and all that, but as Neil Adams pointed out with Marvel and DC, unless you're paying the artist taxes on the art sales, then you are stealing that art, not buying it. Earlier today, hail. Okay. Yeah. So I didn't stay at TSR. I went to go draw funny books, and the reason is that TSR wouldn't release their the originals to the people that actually owned them. Everything I ever drew for TSR was stolen shortly after I left. Apparently, when the suits came in to clear out my office after I quit in semi-disgust, they just sort of grabbed all those originals.
Wow.
And you don't have you ever seen any of that stuff for sale on the open market since? I mean, it's been 40 years.
I might have, but if it was offered like eBay or anything like that, I couldn't afford it. So.
Right.
Wow.
Oh, that's a shame. Wow.
Galaxy says, I love your D&D contributions so much. I was just looking over them this morning. Yeah.
Thank you, stranger.
So then what was your first comic book work?
Well, my first comic book was the ads in the back of Marvel Comics for Dungeons and Dragons.
Right.
If you discount that because it was actually first advertising work, then when I quit TSR, I sold my stock for a nice profit back to them, moved to Long Island, New York with Jeff D. We shared an apartment. Jeff D. went to work for Fantasy Games Unlimited, and I went to work getting on the train, going into New York and showing my stuff to editors. And a lot of the enthusiastic promises when I went out there previous to quitting that, oh, you'll get work right away, dried up immediately. At the same time, the independent movement in mainstream comics, superhero comics, had just ramped up. Noble Comics was doing Justice Machine.
Yep.
First Comics hadn't started yet, but they were were percolating behind the scenes so far. But Pacific Comics, Capital Comics, all sorts of, until then, underground comics were underground. They were, Robert Crumb and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Now there was superhero adventure type stuff coming out. I did samples many times for Marvel and DC using their characters because that's what you had to do. They wanted to see their characters. For all these independents, and I would take the train into New York, go to Forbidden Planet, and just look at what was coming out. I decided I couldn't do samples of their characters for each and every one of them. That just too much work.
Oh yeah, it's crazy.
So I did generic superhero samples. I created the elementals for the specific purpose of showing I knew how to draw.
Oh, cool.
I sent those out to everyone. Mike Gustovich at Noble Comics had to have picked up the phone the moment he received them, called me, said, "Come on out here and draw for us." And I said, okay. And told Jeff D that he was on his own in our shared apartment, got on a bus and moved out there.
So where was that? I don't know where they were out of.
In Grand Rapids, Michigan.
Oh, okay. Wow, that is so weird to me. That's like, because, like say I got in 91, it was all FedEx and whatever. And it just kind of surprised me that it's, instead of saying like, yeah, I want you to work for me, let's get it going, and you just mail stuff. He's like, move on out.
Yeah. And there wasn't FedEx then. So you had to be close enough to bring your work in.
Right.
You didn't have to work at the office,
right,
but you had to be close. I went out there. Mike met my bus. We took a walk. He wanted to talk about how they were having a big welcome to Grand Rapids potluck. I wanted to talk about what am I going to do for this company. So I finally just outright asked him, what will I be drawing for you guys? And he got this very concerned look on his face.
Yeah.
And he said, Bill, you're going to draw that comic series you pitched us, this Elementals. And that's when I learned that I did not just provide samples to prove I could draw, that I had actually pitched a series. Harkening back to the standard, I of course said, well, yes, of course I'm doing that.
Right.
Of course. But I was just wondering if there was other stuff you wanted me to work on as well. And that's how I got my first, let's call it legitimate comics work, drawing my book, The Elementals.
And if I remember right, the Elementals, did they debut in Justice Machine before they had their first issue?
Yes, they did. Mike was doing a couple of books then. One was his series, The Justice Machine.
Yeah.
Then he just started Cobalt Blue that I did a couple of posters for, and one or two other things maybe in the works. But they said, okay, Elementals gets its own series, but why we're just coming out with our first Justice Machine annual. Why don't we do a preview of Elementals in the back of that so that we'll really just hit the ground running with a built-in audience? And I said, that sounds great. So we did a 20-page preview on that. Noble Comics, Mike's outfit, went broke trying to get that printed because suddenly the printing bill just went up. And so they folded the company with all of that drawn and maybe even the plates done for printing. I'm not sure about that part, but all ready to go. And then they decided, you know what, that printing bill will be too huge. We ain't going to do it. His wife, Sue Fillmore, direct descendant of Millard Fillmore, one of our presidents, said, yeah, we've lost so much money on this book already. And of course, my argument during their, we're closing down You Moved Out Here for Nothing meeting, which they had in my apartment, not theirs for some reason. Anyway.
Oh, that's worse.
Wow.
Well, I suppose if, angry freelancers are going to tear up the place, better it be mine.
No, better yours, yeah.
Yeah. But she said, yeah, we lost too much money on this. I go, well, you stop just short of the putting it out and getting sales, which is when that money flows back.
Right.
And do you know how that works? It goes out, it comes back, hopefully a little better than it went out,
Yeah.
So at least if you're saying you lost this much, print it, get sales, and even if it doesn't sell as well as your outlay, maybe you've only really lost this much,
Right. Exactly.
But that fell on deaf ears. They were done. Then Texas Comics scooped up Elementals, Justice Machine, basically anything Noble Comics was doing. These guys from Texas Comics, before they named it Texas Comics, we'd met them at conventions here and there. They scooped it up and said, yeah, we're going to do everything you're doing. We're buying their rights, etc.
Yeah.
So they published Justice Machine Annual #1.
Yep.
As their only publication before they went belly up.
I have it in one of those boxes back there.
Yeah.
And I remember Texas Comics. Yeah. And I remember Noble because I have Cobalt Blue and
there you go.
Justice Machines that Bill Reinhold did. And
Yep. Bill Reinhold's first work, and I'm pretty sure he's terrific.
Yeah.
His stuff just amazes me. And he hit the ground. His stuff looked then like it does now. My stuff, not so much. But that came out, my first comics. Then of course they were done, and Kimiko romanced me to, well, why not continue the series with us, which I did for 5 years, 6 years, something like that, before they went belly up. Yeah. When what? Go ahead.
Well, I was just going to ask. So when you did these as sample pages, to get work. Now, if you remember, when I was at the Kubert School, the recommendation was, and I still tell people this: do 4 to 5 pages of samples, and that's it, and try to pack, people, throw an animal in there so you can show, pretty much everything, so they can see what you can do. Did you do 4 to 5, or did you send more than that? Do you recall?
I think the template then was 6, exactly 6 pages, no more, no less. In so 6 pages, you can show all those things, that you can draw this and this and this, so you can do panel to panel continuity, all of that. So
because this was basically your first time writing something, I assume. And when Mike said, yeah, we want you to do this, and obviously he also meant you write it as well, did you have that little bit of like we said, you go, oh yeah, no problem, but then did you go back to your apartment and be like, I gotta write? What? I've never written anything. Or did writing come natural to you? Because writing for me is still tough.
I suppose it was tough. I mean, I was intimidated by the fact that all I knew about these characters was how they looked, what their powers were, and what their superhero name was. That's it.
Right.
So yeah, I had to come up with a story about them. Yeah, it was a little tough, but looking back in hindsight, all right, let me qualify this. I wrote the 20-page introduction, and I wrote what became the first issue. But by then, Texas Comics, I never liked that name. They were calling themselves Third Coast Comics by the time I went down there to do with them. And I liked that name better, but they got together and said, no, Texas. That's when I found out about Texans, that, you say the word Texas and that's it. That's a conversation ender, because because that is a worshipful word that can never be improved upon. In any case, Texas Comics, I was going to finish drawing the first issue, and they let me know that, yeah, but this fellow of ours, Michael Wolff, has to rewrite your first issue. And I go, why is that? It's my first issue, and you're getting the rights to my book. And they said, well, see, he's the local guy, a friend of ours. When we put this comic company together, we promised him he'd write the entire line. He was going to be our Stan Lee.
Oh, right.
Go, okay, well, that's great. I'll take my book and go, because you forgot to mention that when you brought me down here.
Sure.
And there was some back and forth, but he took a pass at it, and he got credit. And when they went belly up trying to publish the first issue, didn't come out. I took all that back, and as much I liked the guy Michael Wolff, but the first thing I did was fire him. Said, no, that you had to deal with them, not me. You are not the writer of this book going forward. So when a writer was imposed on me, I think it kind of caused me to dig my heels in and say, no, that's not going to be the case. And that was one of my early lessons on find out up front what your publishers are up to.
Sure.
And what they mean when they say this and what they mean when they say that, because they will surprise you with stuff.
Wow.
Bearwolf's asking, who owns all of the Comico or Comico characters now? Who actually owns the rights?
All of the Comico characters are a whole bunch of books owned by different writers, artists, etc. And of course, they were doing licensed material like Johnny Quest and Space Ghost and Gumby and all that then. So the property owners. Now, the Elementals is owned by Andrew Rev. When Comico was going under, they tried to hide the fact by mentioning we're bringing in a fourth partner who's going to influx cash into our thing. And I met the fourth partner, Andrew Rev, and I said, I got a bad feeling about this. And my attitude was, I tell you what, I'm done. I was getting offers from DC then and various other places. I'm out of here because I don't like the way you ran the company into the ground. They had a lovely company. It was running well until they decided they were a wonderful success and that they could do no wrong. And then they made one bad decision after another without consulting the artists and writers that own the properties, because what the hell did we know? We weren't business people. We did not wear suits and ties.
Sure.
How could we know anything about the business of comics? So I said, I'm out the door, but I have fond memories of you guys. We got along well together, so I will not take Elementals with me. I offered it to the company for sale. They accepted, and sometime after that, I found out that there was going to be no fourth partner, that what Rev was really doing was buying out the entire company for pennies on the dollar. So he ended up with the property, promptly ran it into the ground, and there we have it.
So he's had your question. This guy's had Elementals since the 80s, late 80s.
Yes.
Wow.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah,
because I knew somebody else
He's
did.
been on the threshold of bringing it back many times, and many times I've made bets, some actual bets, that nothing will be published before he collapses again. The guy is the most success-proof fellow I've ever met. In this business, if you're going to publish comics, you can kind of be an asshole. Pardon my French.
Yeah, that's okay.
You can kind of be a cheat,
mm-hmm.
and you can kind of be stupid, insane, but you can't be all three of them. uh, one or sometimes two of those, and you can still succeed. All three, and you're doomed. So Andrew Reb, with all of his wild publishing endeavors, was always all three, and always doomed to fail.
Wow. Well, I remember. So then you said you. I think after that, did you ever do anything for Marvel? Because I remember, because I followed your career. So like I got the Green Lantern stuff at DC, Justice League annuals. I can't run it all down from memory, but I have it. But
I did a few things for Marvel. Drawing wise, if you'll remember the official handbook of the Marvel Universe, I drew two of the dead characters. I did Baron Zemo and Night Stalker, or so it was a Daredevil.
Oh, it was probably Night Stalker. Wait, was that the
Daredevil
wearing dude? Yeah,
so, yeah. I did those two. Now that's what I drew for Marvel. I did not get along well with Marvel for a long time. I was a little too argumentative, and one of the few times I visited up there to talk to editors to get work, the first thing that editor, whom I don't remember his name, but he said to me, you're probably not going to get any work with us, because if you were good enough to work for Marvel, you'd already be working for Marvel. It was actually one of their standard, we're the cool kids at the cool table lines. They did not make it up just for me. But I took exception to that. Having come out of the Army, I kind of did you're kind of a little twerp, and I've been in tougher rooms than this many times. So, pack it in, buddy, with that kind of nonsense. And in any case, I was combative and didn't work for Marvel for a long time. I have since written things for them because, of course, people change. Marvel as a corporation exists. The people that were there are no longer there. I did a couple of. They had an X-Men spinoff where it's like the adventures of one or two of the characters at a time. Is it X-Men Unlimited? Is that the?
Yeah, somebody in the chat said X-Men Unlimited. So
yeah. Well, I did one of those that I rather liked. It was a Nightcrawler thing where he has to go rescue a kidnapped girl from the underworld.
Oh, cool.
And it was in the Mustang cave systems, which was made up, but it sounds like it's a real. So the title of the issue was Mustang Sally.
Nice.
Wonderful song for those that follow such. But they left the title off. It irks me that they did everything just fine. They had a few notes that I was more than happy to. Yep, okay, I'll change that because that'll make it better. But someone left the title off. So, I think it's even listed sometimes as an untitled adventure. And then later on, for perhaps Katie Kubert, Joe Kubert's daughter and or granddaughter.
Granddaughter.
She came along and asked me to do a Nightcrawler. They also had a series that was one X-Men character and one Guardians of the Galaxy character team up. And I did a Nightcrawler and Gamora team up where they were in a Kree Empire sponsored sporting event called the every 4 years Blade Championships, where Nightcrawler being a swashbuckler and Gamora being a just stone killer, fought their way to the last round and then got to face last year's champion. And it was all a ruse to capture him alive because of all of his war crimes. But another fun swashbuckling type adventure. And then I also wrote a 4-issue series coinciding with the coming out of the first Thor movie called The Warriors 3. That was fun. Whereas The Warriors 3 versus Fenris the Wolf, which I thought would be a fun romp. So I did minor bits of work for Marvel. Lots of stuff for DC, obviously.
Yeah, I mean the DC stuff on the writing side, I think you're most known for Fables, right? For
Yes.
writing the bulk of it.
Yeah.
That's how did the transition at DC come from then doing? Because I assume you started at DC drawing, and then I assume you wrote stuff before Fables. It wasn't like you went from drawing right to Fables, right? At DC.
I started at DC drawing. I actually, for a very brief time, had a reputation of being a fast artist that could get things done. So I almost always got like one book at a time at like one fill-in issue when someone there dropped the ball and they needed something, this weekend. So I did a lot of single issues of stuff for DC, much of that for Andy Helfer, who I got along with up at DC. And then for when Andy left and his assistant, Kevin Dooley, took over a lot of stuff for him.
Yep.
But no opportunities to write until once Helfer had me write a Batman Adventures or something like that, a done-in-one book, wherein we follow the adventures of Batman from the moment in the middle of a fight he falls out of falls off a skyscraper and hits every ledge on the way down and survives it barely, but he's a little addled in his head and he's trying to recreate like what he's supposed to be doing, and we follow his whole adventures as he gets into one mess after another, until the actual Batman shows up just in time to save him from a big gang shootout. And it turns out he wasn't Batman. He was a guy who him and his wife were into role playing to spice up their sex life. And the final line of the book is like, next time you want to spice up your married life, be Superman. And
there you go.
So that was fun. That was a fun. Other than that, the door was not open at DC to write. Everyone would say, yeah, draw this for a while. Maybe we'll let you write someday. Until I started doing work for Shelley Bond at Vertigo.
Yeah.
Shelley Bond, who was Shelley Roberg at the time, was the very last editor to be hired at Kamiko, like in the 14 days since between she was hired and they finally closed their doors.
Oh, wow.
And so she arrived just in time to feel good about the magic of editing comics for a living, but not to learn to hate all the crap that goes on in comics. And while I was not paying attention, I barely remembered her, but at some DC party that I was invited to, she came up and said, "You remember who I am?" And we had such a great time working together. And I go, yeah, okay, sure. And she said, "Come, now I'm a Vertigo editor, to come write stuff for me." And I eventually, I was pretty sour on DC at the time, or anyone, but eventually got talked into it. I wrote a couple of issues of this, couple of issues of that, mostly Sandman related.
Okay.
Anything Neil Gaiman pooped out onto the trail and forgot about as he went on with his stellar career, they would send the shovel guy out like in parades to scoop it up and hire other people to do spin-offs of. So I did a lot of that, and that stuff got a lot of critical attention and almost no sales. There may not have been a book in any of that era that sold more than in the dozens. But then I expected Fables to do about the same. Some nice critical attention, low sales, and then I'll move on to something else. But it took off. Once Fables took off, then the door to writing other stuff for DC and eventually for Marvel, the Warriors 3 thing came about because of that. That was suddenly wide open. Then I did Robin and Shadow Pact and JSA and who knows what else. Lots of stuff.
But you pitched them Fables, or was it something they came to you with the germ of an idea and you flushed it out?
No, I pitched a company to be named later, Fables. I was in Vermont. Shelley Bond was on. She was Shelley Bond by this time. Was on the phone with me trying to get me to pitch her. Shelley Bond would get ideas and then try and find someone to do a book based on it.
Right.
She wanted 2 sassy female detectives. And I said, Shelley, I'm sure I have a 2 sassy female detective story in me right now, but I really got to work on this other pitch I'm doing for another company. And she's very territorial. She got defensive and said, oh, what other thing? And I go, don't worry, it's not a Vertigo stuff. It's nothing you would like. Vertigo at the time is like if you didn't have kind of pouty counterculture kids with piercings, we didn't want to look at it. And I even said, Shelley, there's no pouty teenage pierced people in this, so you would not be interested. And she got her back up and said, well, I'll be the judge of that. And I explained the thing to her. And this was on a Friday. And I said, look, I've got to work on this because by Monday, I want to send this out to the companies that do stuff like this.
Yeah.
And she goes, well, you're wrong. That is a Vertigo title. You're going to have it on my desk by Monday, and we're going to accept it. And, okay. All right. So I gave her a week. I said, look, you gave me work when work was not forthcoming. So sure, that buys you a week. And in that week, Jeanette Kahn, who was still running DC at the time, but also had a foot out the door. She was on her way out to do Hollywood stuff. Took a look at it, decided this is a property I could take with me to Hollywood, and just told people, we are accepting this. Get her done. Huh. And that is how Fables came about.
Wow. And Fables went on for how long did that go on for? Because I know there was
13 years.
And that includes, because it was an ongoing series, but then there were some, didn't it end and then have miniseries after that, or did they?
Well, during the ongoing series, we spun it off with Jack of Fables and also with Fairest, which was individual stories about different female Fairest and all the land characters. Yeah. Then I entered it at 150. I thought that was a good run.
Hell yeah.
And we were done. But then Mark Doyle, who is a fine fellow, one of the few truly fine fellows to work at a comic company, approached me at some convention and said, the 20th anniversary of Fables publishing is coming up. Do you want to do a special Fables, something for that? He and Dan DiDio talked me into it. We did a handshake deal. I said, yeah, you can have a new Fables arc, 12 issues, but then you also have to do 2 other projects of mine as well. And they agreed, and we did it. Those other 2 projects, I wrote them, they paid me for them, they'll never be seen because apparently DC only did that just so that they could get the Fables deal. So yeah.
So they paid you for 2 issues of something, and they've never been drawn or anything, huh?
Nope. They're in a drawer. DC buys a lot of stuff that sits in drawers and will never be done. I'm not sure how they can afford that, but they've had ideas for different things that didn't work out. And I've written probably a dozen, maybe close to 2 dozen scripts that will never get out of someone's drawer.
That's weird. Like
they pay for them. They
oh yeah,
pay
no
page rate.
Yeah, no, it just gets me. It gets me thinking, because my first job in comics was for DC, and it was a fill-in issue, or no, it was an inventory issue back when they used to do those. You know, where they have an issue done, and it's like, oh no, the book's going to misprinting. Grab the inventory issue,
right?
And it was for an issue of Suicide Squad, and you know, like I think like roughly a year or so after I drew it, they canceled the book. So it never came out. And then like 10 years later, I was working at CrossGen in Tampa, and I got a FedEx box from DC, and I'm like, oh, what's this? And it was all my original art to it. And I just I kind of wonder if like, no, I was going to say, I kind of wonder if like the editor gave it to me because, you know, I knew guys would get their start doing like an inventory, because then basically it's DC kind of, or any company doing inventories, rolling the dice like, well, if it sucks, we're out for one issue of art, not anything else.
Sure.
And we'll never use it. Or if not, and the book's late, we'll obviously print it and stuff. And I don't know. I never, you know, heard that until now. So it just kind of got me thinking, like, I wonder if that was kind of like a test to see how I did. Because I mean, I kept getting work after. You mentioned Kevin Dooley. That's who I started working for after this inventory issue.
Oh yeah. Yeah. They actually had a policy in place to where, and they would get whole books drawn. I did a couple of inventory books drawing. I did a issue of Justice League that was going to transition between the old run and the new Justice League with Kevin Nolan and
But you mean Kevin McGuire?
Kevin McGuire and Keith Giffen and I spaced his name, Moonshadow. Nice guy. But anyway, their run. So it was an inventory issue before they decided to end JLA with Crisis and start it up again post-Crisis.
Yeah.
So it stayed in a drawer for a few months, and it was Kurt Busiek wrote it. It had the Fiddler as its villain. But I got to draw, you know, the standard Superman and Batman and whatever.
Yeah.
That never got published because, of course, Crisis came along and made all of that obsolete. They left it in a drawer for a while and eventually returned the art to me. And I did a Justice League International 10-page or 12-page story called Nixon Attacks, which is it was a period piece when Eisenhower was president and Nixon was his vice president, as every schoolboy knows. And Eisenhower is taken captive by terrorists, and the Martian Manhunter, no one can get in to see him, but they wanted to talk to Vice President Nixon, so he turns himself into Vice President Nixon and goes to see the terrorists and ends up beating them all up. And the joke at the end was Eisenhower was finally so impressed with what a great action adventure guy Nixon was that he said, "You ought to be president someday," which puts the idea in his head. And it's actually Martian Manhunter's fault. And they were going to do that. Oh, I drew the hell out of that story. I still have it. Still have every page of it. And but that sat in a drawer for not long. It was actually going to be inked, lettered, and used until the actual Richard Nixon died just then. And they thought, well, this will be in poor taste. And so they just sent it back to me and said, we won't be using this. They I assume I am not unique, that they don't just commission all this stuff from me and with the intention of not using it, which means they must buy a lot of that stuff that just sits in drawers. You want to be an enterprising comic company, make a deal with DC for like one big catch-all price to be able to just root through their drawers and and have the rights to publish anything they haven't published yet.
Well, the funny thing too is, especially if it's stuff from, back then, the creators they hired might not have been names, but if they are now, you think DC would go, we're sitting on money.
Yes.
We could print this stuff. Yeah. Now, you said you have that job. Do you have the other Justice League one or no anymore or no?
They returned the art to me, and because it had like Superman, Batman, Green Lantern, or Flash on just about every page, I was able to sell that at conventions. I only recently sold the last 2 pages of that.
But you didn't keep copies of it or anything?
Yeah.
Oh, because I was going to say, because I subscribed to the newsletter that, you email out when you write stuff. And I was like, oh my God, you could put that stuff in a newsletter because they can't.
I should have.
Well, you can do it with the Nixon job.
I couldn't. I think I have. I'm not sure. I think I posted some of that. Maybe I'll post it all at once at some point.
Yeah, I think that'd be cool. Because, there's no harm in doing that. Like I did my first job. So my first job for DC, fill in inventory, never sees print, get it back 10 years later. My first job for Marvel was a Doctor Strange annual. Same thing. Never saw print, but this was actually inked by Alfredo Akela, and I got my portion back, and Alfredo got his portion back.
Yeah.
And never saw print.
Yeah. That stuff hurts. It's good they pay you your page rate.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
But they should know, they're in the publishing business, that we don't do this just for the money. I mean, there's not one of us that couldn't make more money doing something else.
Right.
I once got paid an outrageous amount of money for doing a single pencil illustration of a potted plant for some advertising company that wanted they were selling a little thing that you put over the thing where the plant hangs to water it from time to time. They paid me ridiculous amounts of money for that one illustration.
Sure.
And so we don't want the money. We want the money, but that's not our motivator. We want to see that stuff out there. We want to tell stories, and you don't tell stories without an audience receiving the story.
And not only that, but from the artist standpoint, it's not like you draw 20 pages in like a day. That first job took me like 4.5 weeks because I wanted to get, even though he said, oh, there's no deadline, it's an inventory, blah, blah. Joe Kubert would always say, never fall for that no deadline crap. Get it done. If Joe was a page a day guy. Now, Joe was faster than that, but he taught basically, if you're a penciler, you should be able to draw 5 pages a week.
Well, that's the dividing line. You can make a living if you can draw a page a day or ink a page a day.
Right.
You can't make a living if you can't. There were those like Kirby and Byrne that could do 6 issues a month, and who knows how they were able to do that. But for those of us humans, a page a day was the absolute minimum ability.
Yeah. So I did the book in like 4.5 weeks, and it never saw print. And it was nice 10 years later, the surprise shows up and I get the pages back, but it was still kind of like, oh, I busted my ass on that.
Yeah. That sucks, doesn't it?
Hey, so before we're gonna wrap it up, but so what's current with you? What's going on? What are you doing? We have, like I said, we do have your website in the chat below so people can go visit, or in the description, and our moderators have been posting it.
Okay.
But,
can I show off a couple of things if I hold it up to the camera?
Do whatever.
These are things you can buy in my store right now.
We'll give you the
This-
screen.
Oh, it's reversed. This is a book I wrote for Tor Books.
It's not reversed. We can read it.
Yep.
Okay. It's Down the Mystery River, a children's book
Oh, cool.
that I wrote. They got Mark Buckingham
Yeah.
to illustrate it. But that is available. It's a hardback.
Oh, wow.
And it is a children's book with using the C.S. Lewis law, which is what good is a children's book that adults don't also want to read? So
Oh, there you go.
that's my children's book. It's about talking animals and adventures.
So I guess I'm going to real quick on that children's book because that's a wide range. What age range would you say for children? Like 10?
Well, I wouldn't say. As a matter of fact, I wrote the story with no age range in mind. It's just a story that occurred to me that I wanted to write. The publishers tell me it is a young reader's book, which is
Okay.
apparently there's a category between young adults and children's book, which is called young readers.
Yep.
So that's the age range that they say it is.
Okay.
I would say, from 10 to 90, I'm going to say.
Yeah. Okay.
I have another book that is adult fiction, not adult as in ooh la la fiction, but
Don't get too excited.
grown up stuff. It is called Just Another Ranker. It is military fantasy. It's about
cool.
a guy who always wanted to go in some, away to some elf infested world, whatever like that, gets his wish, but he ends up joining a rifle company. Just Another Ranker. That's available in my store.
Cool.
Right next to Hammer of the Gods, another novel I wrote that's available in my store that I could not find. Just before we were on here, I tried to grab a copy of that to show off, and I couldn't find a copy. They're everywhere, and I'll find them as soon as we sign off. But if you want some samples of what I'm drawing these days, just to prove that I still draw, because I get a lot of, why don't you draw anymore? Well, I never stopped. I just, I've slowed down.
Sure.
But I have a sketchbook out called Story Fragments.
Oh, cool.
I saw a sketchbook that Neil Adams put out that was all unfinished pieces of his stuff in progress, and I just liked it. So I put this out. I'll give you a few examples. There's something that's finished. It was a commission.
Oh, nice.
Here's another commission before it was finished. It has since been finished and sent off to, the...
So how many pages is that? And what are you asking for it?
Oh, good question. It is 32 pages.
Okay.
On pretty good stock. And it's $20 a pop, but I think the price in the store also includes my friend Brad's shipping.
Okay.
cost.
And what do the two novels you showed, what do they go for in your store?
That is a good question. Let me see. Did I put prices on it? I do not know. They are reasonably priced. Go to the store, you will find out. And now the novels, like Just Another Ranker, Hammer of the Gods, you can get them through Amazon Kindle.
Oh, wow.
Through my store, though, you can get them signed if you want.
Nice.
Anyway, those things are available, and other stuff is coming out. I just finished a huge project that took me a year to do. I cannot tell you anything about it because that would be a rotten thing to do. It is up to the publishers to make whatever announcement when it's time. It's there's stuff coming down the pike.
Cool. Well, Tony, says he just ordered a copy of Story Fragments.
Yeah, I see that. Thank you.
And Randy says $26.50, so that's how much Story Fragments is.
Yeah,
I assume that's with
the
shipping. Yep. And we also got $2 super chat. Thank you from Goody Two Shoes for $2. He says, Bill, thank you for your work. Big fan.
Well, thank you very much, Goody Two Shoes.
Well, man, Bill, I got to tell you, this has been fantastic. I could talk for hours, but then my wife would complain when she gets home and sees that she can't get in the garage because my car's in front of the garage door.
Oh, do you broadcast from the garage? Is that where we are?
Yeah, my office is above our garage.
Oh,
and
okay.
I ran out today, and when I came back, because we go out to dinner after this, and I just pulled straight back, and she gets off around 5 and doesn't work too far away, so she might pull up and send me a nasty text.
Okay. Where are you at?
Charlotte, North Carolina.
Yep.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so if you ever make it to Heroes Con.
Going to go to Heroes Con, I was about to ask, so obviously. Lovely con.
Yeah.
I love that show.
Joe's asking if you still do any cons, Bill.
I do ish.
Yeah.
I took a long break from conventions, not because of COVID, but COVID did its thing during that time.
Yep.
When I was just done with traveling for a while. It happened actually on the publicity tour for down the Mississippi River.
Cool.
Tour Books was sending me all over the place, like get on a plane every night and appear somewhere every day. At the time, unbeknownst to me, I was dying from a undiagnosed heart ailment that I thought was a cold I just couldn't seem to shake. So I was so miserable on this trip. You know, every stop they arrange, you know, a nice dinner or whatever like this. On the last stop, my friend and sometimes agent Ken Levin was doing wheeling and dealing with the people that made Abraham Lincoln Vampire Hunter.
Oh yeah.
So the last day of shooting out in New Orleans, I was invited with them to go out to the set and, you know, see the last day of principal shooting. And I couldn't do that. I couldn't do anything but give my little speech, retire like death to my room, and hopefully get on the plane for the next thing. I thought it was a cold. Turns out to have been a screwed up heart murmur thing. They eventually fixed it, by the way. I didn't die.
Thank God.
Spoiler alert, I'm still here. But that turned me off of traveling for many years.
Sure.
I am starting to ease back into it. I would have been at the Heroes Con this year, except for by the time I sort of stuck my nose up to say, isn't that coming soon? It was too close. So I will do any conventions I do, I will have to be able to drive there, even if it's a multi-day drive, because I also swore off getting on airplanes again. I hate getting on planes for any reason.
I hear that. Yeah.
Yeah. So if you want to send a private jet for me, I'll do any con.
Yeah, no doubt. I would
do
that.
Who cares if it's a bunch of drunken yahoos flying that thing? You know, just the crammed into a tube with a lot of people I don't know and don't like. Part of it is what annoys me.
No, I totally understand that.
Couch I could stretch out on for the whole thing. I'm there, baby.
There you go.
Yeah, but otherwise I'll drive.
Awesome.
Next year, if Sheldon is so inclined, I will. I'll be more than happy to take the drive down there.
Oh, cool. Well, I'll mention it to him.
Yeah,
so I've known Sheldon for 30 years.
Please tell him I said hello, and
I will.
You know, I miss him. The last time I was there, his wife and or living. Did they ever get married. Anyway,
Well, you got to tell me what year around the last time was, and I can
it was
tell you.
while Fables was going along, because she showed me entire Fables tattoos on her legs, and I'm
pretty sure. Yeah, no, that's his current wife.
Yeah, so they did. Okay, good. Well, they'd lived in sin for a long time before they.
Well, yeah, you know.
Anyway, so that's the last time I was there. Was back then, so it's been a long time.
All right. Yeah, no, I'll definitely tell him you said hi and stuff. Definitely, man. That's cool.
Yeah.
Cool.
No, a lovely show. You do the post-show barbecue every year, I assume.
Yep.
Yeah.
He still does it. Yeah.
Yeah. So
the dead dog.
Yep.
That's cool.
Great stuff.
Well, thank you for joining us today.
Yeah,
well, thank you for having me. I enjoyed being had. And I hope your viewers feel they got their money and or time worth.
Oh, they always do.
That's
Speaking of which, we've got a couple hundred of you guys on live right now. And when we're done here, you should head over to Graybeard Studio with Aaron Lepresti. He's got Jeff Johnson on. And go join and raid their show. They would love to see you guys joining their stream.
That's right. It just started. All right, guys. We will catch you in 2 weeks. Dennis is going on a vacation next week, like a slacker. I'll be here working hard on Lilith, so go sign up for Lilith Infernal Conflict. Here is the main cover I did. So that is the main cover. That is the homage cover. And these are some new characters. So go sign up for that. Launching soon. And we will be back on Friday with the movie review.
Before we go, can I ask you a question about that?
Yeah, go
One
ahead.
of my bugaboos is, did you design the demonic characters there?
Yeah.
Okay. Why bat wings?
Oh, they're succubi. I guess that's how you say it.
Yeah, they're succubus from the abyss, and part of there is that they all have leathery wings and they have unique innate abilities and stuff. So in this universe, they're all going to be similar design like their male brethren, the incubi.
Yeah. Well, let me pose this question.
Sure.
Demons are always shown with bat wings.
Mm-hmm.
Angels are always shown with feathered avian wings.
Right.
Dragons, bad bat wings. We came from mammals. Mammals are the good guys of the ancient animal world.
Mm-hmm.
Had there not been little micey type things, we wouldn't exist. Mammals that fly have bat wings. Angels and such apparently came from dinosaurs, which became birds. Dinosaurs were mean, eating up all the mammals, eating up all each other, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
They're the bad guys. So why don't we switch it? Why don't the good guys have the bat wings and the bad guys have the dinosaur bird wings? That's all I ask. Anyway,
that's a good question.
That's my personal bugaboo.
That's a good question. I've never given it that much thought before.
And now,
but I just think because feathery wings
ruined your book.
No, not at all. Feathery wings look nice and friendly, and leather bat type wings look bad.
Yeah. It's all lookism.
Yeah.
And yet we owe our existence to all those little warrior mice from back then that stayed alive in the face of predation.
There you go.
Anyway, we'll leave you with that. Thank you very much for letting me come and yak.
Are you kidding? Anytime. We'll have to do it again.
Yeah, hopefully we'll see you at one of the shows movie. That would be awesome.
Yeah.
We'll talk someday.
That's right.
Yep.
All right, guys. We'll be back Friday morning with the with the movie review of Ballerina. That's what we're seeing tomorrow night. So stay tuned for that movie review. And until then, bye-bye, everybody. Have a great night.
Prosper.
And be safe.